They are here for all of you to be able to give you more information about the proposed development, also to be able to get feedback and input from you all. This is your project as much as it is ours. So this evening, I would like to actually introduce, we have Darren Hall and Tillman Strowick from Civitas Development Group, and we have Steve Connaught from GBBN, so a very experienced architectural firm that has extensive experience in mixed-use development projects. So again, this evening, we're kind of going through the presentation with what the proposed development would be. There'll be some breakout groups immediately following and plenty of opportunity to ask questions. And again, this is the first of 3 community engagement events in this project. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to, well, either. So we'll turn it over to Steve. We'll start out. Thank you.
So good evening, everybody. Again, I'm Darren Hall, and I thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to come and speak with you this evening. Civitas Development Group is a developer that we haven't worked in St. Bernard before, but we know we're showing up, and we know that we've got to earn your trust and approval. We're not a developer that will show up like a lot of developers do, with a predetermined idea of what's going to happen and you cram it down the throats. That's not how we operate. We operate from the very beginning. We start with neighborhood engagement. The reason that you do that is you want to make sure you build a project that the neighborhood wants. You know, then you want to build something that will be successful, something that everybody can get behind. So if we do this right, we come up with a project that is something that makes us all proud, but especially you proud in your community. So the purpose for the meeting tonight is for, number one, for us to say hello and then start to talk about what to expect from this process. Many of you may have heard that there's a deal with a developer. Where we are right now is there is a pre-development deal. And what that means is that we are agreeing to move forward with figuring out what happens there, right? So there's no determined what's going to happen here. There's no side deals cut, anything like that. This is a real community engagement opportunity. So, right, okay. So again, Civitas is a developer. We do 3 things. So we do single-family housing, we do mixed-use projects, and we work on a consulting basis with municipalities and land banks and other investors to do projects in neighborhoods that have expressed a desire to do so and want to do it going forward. My background, so Civitas is a 3-year-old company, but I spent the last almost 8 years as Executive Vice President of the Port Authority, which runs the land bank. And what that means is that we care a lot about doing things the right way in communities. Some of those are some of the projects. So on the left is a house that we did in on Virginia Avenue North Side. In the middle is a new housing project that we built in Columbus. And then just for fun, on the right is a modular housing design that we did in Walnut Hills a few years ago. Everything that we do is, so the projects that we've done to date is for sale. So we're not coming in to do anything to hurt any of the neighborhood. We want to do things to add value and make it better for St. Bernard. Okay, so next. So our partner in this, which was important, the first person that I called is Steve Kennett from GBBN. Steve and I had worked together many times at the Port Authority, and the thing is, when you start, you have to have a vision, right? You have to have somebody that can take what the community expresses, what the master plan is that has been written, and turn that into a real design, and you go from there to figuring out a budget to do it. So that's what Steve and his team have done all around, in many places around the world, actually, but they happen to be here, and some residents from St. Bernard work on Steve's team, too. So again, the timing is, like I said, this is where we are is the first thing. It's the pre-development agreement. What that gives us the opportunity to do is start to do the due diligence to figure out, number one, if this can go forward. So we've got to get our environmentals, we've got to work out what the final design is, and we've got to finalize the capital stack to be able to close and do it, we've got to hire, the contractor. We'll have the very best people, but we're at the very beginning right now. But this is the most important part right here, right now at the beginning. So again, thank you for coming. The last thing that we do is once we get all the site plan done and it's refined and we know really what we're going to build, we'll come back again and you all will all be a part of that. And then we sign the purchase and sale agreement with the village and we close, and then we'll be off and development starts. Demo will start and then development will start probably at the beginning of next year. So we got a long way to go, but we've got to go together. So again, those are the 4 things that we have to do. It's the community engagement, the due diligence, finalizing the agreement, and then we close on the property, what we just said. So that's what you should expect from us. And we need you to help us get it right. Okay. So this is, Steve is going to take on here. So GBBN is actually the ones that are going to lead this engagement process. And so I'll get out of the way and let Steve start talking.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. It is awesome to see so many people come out for a session like this. And these are really fun sessions, I have to tell you, because this is all about the future. This is all about, charting your vision for where St. Bernard is going, and kind of we're along for the ride. So the point of tonight's process in this early stage analysis and strengths is to do much more listening. We believe that you need to be a good listener before you can be a good designer. So you all, Darren asked who was taking the notes. I said, you all are taking the notes. So there are note cards and pens at the tables. We're going to be getting to a couple of questions after we go through a little bit of language and talk a little bit about the history. We're going to be asking questions, just some open-ended questions of you all, so that you can give your opinions on what this project really needs and what success looks like. So we'll be going through this tonight. We'll be going through these questions to establish goals and vision for the project. And then we'll be coming back in a month. And then at that point, we'll make sure that we heard those goals right. We'll edit those. And then we'll start to look at some options for you. And you'll have a chance to look at those iterations and give feedback on those. This feels better. I can envision myself here. I can envision my family here. I'd love to be able to attract more residents here. So understanding those goals will give you a lens by which to help us make those decisions. So we'll be soliciting that feedback. And then in September, as Darren said, we're working on due diligence. So there's environmental issues, there's legal issues, all that research that's happening, geotechnical, all that research that can be happening at the same time that we're doing some design work, that some initial pricing is being done, and the balance of the due diligence, so that everything kind of aligns together and we can come into the starting gate. This isn't the end, this is the beginning, so that we can come into the starting gates together. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. So we love to start with project context. We understand that St. Bernard has a rich history. I was telling somebody earlier, I used to, up until 3 years ago and moving downtown, I used to live at the corner of Lowry and Mitchell. So I used to come to St. Bernard for a lot of my needs, being on the edge of Avondale there. It's a great community. There's a lot of strengths to the community. There's a great sense of being and a great sense of purpose and a great sense of community. We want to continue to build on that. You've got great resources and great assets, and that's what gives the richness to the history here. So the site, and everybody's generally aware of that, the St. Bernard Square, the shopping center, which you see outlined in red. There's the Long John Silver's site, which is kind of a phase 2 discussion, and I understand there's a great celebration being planned to start to take that building down, but that's not really what we're here to focus on right now. But we're more focusing on the 5 acres on the opposite side of Vine Street. And when you look at the connectivity that St. Bernard offers, this is all about, Vine Street, such an artery for the greater Cincinnati community. The connectivity to I-75 for, both the wall that it offers behind there and kind of gives an anchor or a grasp at the edge of the community, but it also gives you all great mobility, right? You can get anywhere in the city so easily by access to I-75 and 562, and that's also one of the strengths of the community. But then along this corridor, there are great opportunities, kind of nodes, right? We get the various districts at the base, these cross streets along Vine Street, and the connectivity that gets back into Bond Hill from Ross in Tennessee. Or this is a gateway site in a lot of different ways, right? Coming from the north, coming underneath the bridge, it opens up the city, and then really has an opportunity to form an exclamation point to the business district that already exists. So again, this is the outline of the site as it's been presented to us. So we have the shopping center, the big parking lot, even the corner building now where Skyline used to be. It does not include the building where Skyline is now. The Skyline and Subway and the other building on the corner is not technically part of this strategy right now, nor is the post office. The project scope, and this was defined in the announcement that has been on the website. Generally, we're looking at about 200 apartment units. We have the opportunity here to, because of the scale, because of the presence of Vine Street, because of what can happen at a large, busy street like that, but also because of what happens in the neighborhood. And you go to Andrews and it kind of works its way into a really nice neighborhood. We have an opportunity to work in a variety of scales. So we can do traditional flats, apartments, single-level apartments. We can do townhomes. We can do walk-ups. We can use a lot of different tools in our arsenal, and we'll get into some of those in detail so that you understand what we're talking about, what they look like, how they feel. About 5,000, it could be a little more, could be a little less, space of commercial space. So retail, could be a service retail, could be a restaurant, could be a donut shop or a bakery. There's a lot of opportunities here to build on the energy of what you're already doing. And then what's really important for the residents is shared green space that they kind of feel a sense of ownership to. We want to have something that is amenities for the residents who live on this site, but we also want to have amenities for the people in the community. So public space, shared space. St. Bernard really doesn't have a village green. This opportunity, this site does present that kind of opportunity for you all. And then obviously it has to balance out. We don't want people to just parking on the side streets that are there and causing a hindrance to the residents. So we want to make sure that the project overall is self-parked. So we've talked about project goals. And this is something that when we're working in an urban environment, when we're working in a neighborhood, there's a lot of consistency to these. So they said, we want to make sure that we create a sense of place, right? So St. Bernard certainly has its own culture. Where does that culture find its way? Where is the beating heart? And I think this project, along with the rest of what's happening on the Vine Street corridor, has the opportunity to do that. At the same time, the pedestrian experience that you have along Vine Street working towards this, it pretty much falters away by the time you get to the shopping center. Not too many people are walking along Vine Street because there's nothing to give them a sense of place or feel safe as traffic is whizzing by them at probably 40 miles an hour. They might be going to the bus stop, but there's not a lot to take them there. And frankly, the quantity of traffic is not the problem. The speed of the traffic is the problem, right? If you give people a reason to stop, you've got this great artery. Let's give people a reason to slow down and give people a reason to park and to stay. We want to anchor the business district. As I said, this kind of has both a gateway opportunity from the north and the south, and the ability to create an exclamation point and a welcome sign for the community. Encouraging eyes and feet on the street, pedestrian environment, you're seeing it already. Everything up from Wiedemann's is already really pedestrian oriented. We want to continue that down into the basin. And we want to diversify the housing offerings, right? So there's an opportunity here for density, and we don't want to be over dense, but we can actually build the different rungs of the housing ladder here. So we have the number of people that I've talked to who have bought their grandparents' home in St. Bernard is remarkable to me, right? So it might skip a generation, but that's a house that I grew up visiting, and now I've got this chance. And my parents still live close by too, so this happens regularly. But at the same time, that grandparent might like an opportunity not to clean the gutters and mow the lawn. So we have an opportunity to rebuild the rungs of the housing ladder for somebody starting out. the same time somebody who's established. And so this, because of the different housing models that we're talking about, has an opportunity to fill all those gaps. So the rest of tonight's conversation is really about the what else. So these are some things that we've kind of come to in conversations with the CIC and with Darren and Tillman, but we're going to try to get your feedback on this.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Adam Fosnall. I also work with Steve at GBBN. Really excited to be here tonight and get all of your feedback. But before we do that, we thought we'd take a few moments and go through some general design concepts or ideas or verbiage. So we're speaking the same language tonight and then over the course of the next couple months. So when we say public realm, what do we mean by public realm? The public realm is really any sort of shared space within a community. So it's a sidewalk, or it's a park, or it's a garden, or it's an institutional building, or it's the space that we're in tonight. And so one thing that we'll want to really talk about and pay attention to is how we can best utilize that public realm and make it a nice, safe space for everyone. Street activation. Similarly, there are multiple ways a street can be activated. So one way could be through storefronts, through retail spaces that encourage people to come in, have a coffee, have a bite to eat. It could also be through nice, generous sidewalks or outdoor dining, sort of beautification techniques as well, with landscaping or trees along the way. All methods to generate street activation, get people walking, interconnected, sort of enhancing the pedestrian experience. Diverse housing offerings. If we start with the notion that we'll have plus or minus 200 apartment units coming on board, we want to make sure that we're offering different types of housing units. So whether that's flats or walk-ups or townhouses, all different strategies that might appeal to different segments of the market, different people within the community. So the idea of offering choice within the housing community. Gateways and corners. The site, as Steve said, is really unique. It's both sort of the gateway to St. Bernard if you're approaching from beneath 75, but it's also serving as the anchor to the back end or to the north side of the business district. And so you have the Ross Street at the north and you have McClellan at the south that are sort of framing this. And one way to address that is to play with sort of the size or the scale, the mass of certain corner elements, maybe the transparency, but really let the architecture be something that sort of signifies the beginning, the gateway, the anchor, the welcoming piece into St. Bernard. And then blending building scales. So we don't want to just have one big building that's all sort of monotonous and the same, especially when you're dealing with a community like St. Bernard. There are different size buildings, there are different size houses, from single family to more municipal buildings. So rather than have one sort of straight extrusion, we want to provide massing and different scales so it blends into the overall environment. And then traditional materials and contemporary materials. Traditional materials, contemporary details. So we want to sort of honor the past while also making this project forward thinking. So, with that forward thing in mind, thinking about how the details come together, using bricks and using materials that you've seen in this community for 100 years. How can we define them in a way that's modern and progressive and is looking forward rather than just looking to the past? And with that, we have 5 questions prepared for tonight. And the idea is to break up into small groups. So maybe 8 or 10 people together, or maybe grab a table and huddle around. There are note cards that Ivan has passed around and pens. Has everyone gotten those materials? Yeah, share pens if you don't have enough, or dig into your purse or your backpack or what have you, and we'll sort of jump into this.
So the point of this is to have a group discussion amongst maybe a table or a pair of tables, and then put the answer. We'd ask that you put a number 1. Like Adam said, we have 5 questions. Put a number 1 and then your answer by it as you close the conversation. It's not a time test, but we want to spend maybe 5 minutes on each of these. And then as some conversation is going on, there might be some things that come out that you want to share as a group too. So the first question is very simply, what's your favorite thing about St. Bernard? You all call this community home. And some, I met a couple earlier who's been here for over 20 years. I bet, who's been here longer than 20 years? That is awesome. Longer than 30? 40? 50 years? Yeah, right. That's remarkable. So we really want your perspective, right? And if you need another card because you run out of space, let us know. We'll get you another card.
space like park benches, a seating area, kind of a park area, with a scope of 200 units, because we're kind of lost with no sense of how that 5 acres is going to be filled.
So tonight is about figuring out what happens in those 5 acres. I can tell you that it all fits. We've done some very, very preliminary yield studies, if you will, and the buildings could be in the 4-story range. They probably wouldn't be much taller than that. The walk-up model might be 3 stories. Townhomes are usually 2 stories. And as I said before, we'll make sure that the project is self-parked. The idea that the first floor of some of those 4-story buildings might be commercial space, maybe not all of it, but some of it. I was talking to a gentleman earlier, so one of the projects we're doing right now, which I'm really excited about, is College Hill Station. And I don't know if anybody's been up to the intersection of Hamilton and North Bend, but it's taking shape pretty well. There's going to be some commercial retail on the 2 corners, but the residential actually comes down to street level for part of the units. But then it's lifted off the sidewalk just a little bit in creation of the dooryards that Adam had on one of those photographs that we looked at. So people still have personal space. It almost acts like a townhouse, but would be designed like a flat. But I think there's plenty of space in the 5 acres that we're talking about.
Okay, so that helps us visualize a little bit of, are we talking 12-story buildings, or are we talking 4-story?
I don't have a clear answer for that, but I think when we talk today about the things that happen, that will help define the right size of the green space that you talked about, right? So are we talking about a green space for small ice cream socials, or are we talking about green space for, a large festival? And we want to right size that too. Okay, we'll move on to the next question maybe. So at the same time that there's a lot of pride in what St. Bernard already offers, a question might also be, what do you leave the neighborhood for? Right? So where do you find yourself looking for things, or what do you find yourself looking for that you don't necessarily have here, that maybe we have an opportunity to attract or recruit? Give that some thought. Who has something that they want to share about something that St. Bernard doesn't currently offer and where you go for what you're missing? Yeah, please.
I guess the two biggest things that I kind of heard through the grapevine were like a grocery store, and it looks like most people either go to like the Kroger over in Spring Grove, or just more restaurants, and not necessarily this like Skyline on the Rose, but I guess like more family-oriented restaurants.
I heard a family restaurant as well. A sit down. Okay.
Gas station too, yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Taylor?
Providing variety, and especially when it comes to restaurants, sit-down type restaurants.
Yeah.
Also just basic needs, a pharmacy, a gym. That's a lot of the things that people around me were needing for.
Okay. So actually, I'll take that moment. So all the cards that you all are writing down, we're going to collect those tonight. We're going to be doing word clouds. We're going to be looking for patterns. We're going to be looking for the cream that rises to the top. So if you want to keep it for yourself, snap a picture. But we will want to collect the cards from you this evening. So I wasn't familiar with this term specifically, but Jonathan had told us that the Heritage Hill Business District, or the heart of the business district in St. Bernard. So how would you describe it? If you had a couple of words to choose, how would you describe what it looks like, what it feels like? Is it vibrant? Does it offer the diversity? So I'll let you riff on that for a little bit. Write it down. Again, does anybody have any conversation they'd like to share with the group about the business district here? Please. So, not enough parking. Okay. It is interesting that we've got a really big surface parking lot on the site that we're talking about here, but does anybody ever think to park there and walk a block or 2 blocks? Oh, for business, for the owners you're talking about. Okay, all right, okay.
And I think that kind of ties into something else. It kind of seems underutilized for the space.
Yeah.
It seems like it has a lot of potential to house good and interesting local businesses, but currently there really isn't much there, so there's no real incentive to walk there as well.
And it's not a pleasant walk to get from there anywhere else, which is a big part of what we're talking about. Yeah, yep. There's yeah, please.
Basically, to sum it up, it feels inconvenient. Like when I'm driving down Vine, like there's a couple parking lots, which is great, but the signage is so small, so people coming to our community have no idea where it is. And you're rolling down, and all the businesses, a lot of them have very inconvenient business hours. A lot of them are just kind of by appointment only, which is great, but I feel like they would be better suited in a different location if we're trying to increase traffic and business to the community.
Has that been, I mean, here, this is one of the first in-person events, certainly of this scale, that I've been to in quite a while. How much of the hours and everything, is that something recent, or is that something that was already 2 years ago and things like that, very limited hours?
I've lived here 12 years, and it's been like that the entire time.
Okay, that's fair.
Dream is the most recent thing that I've seen happen in this community that was like, yes, finally
Yeah.
I can walk to the bar, you know, I can go have a pint or, you know, something to eat and walk home. And
Okay.
that's lovely.
Thank you. That's great. Anybody else? Thoughts about the business district? Sure, sir.
I mean, that would probably be my concern is, do you guys have a plan of action to make sure that the businesses that are going to move into those retail and commercial spaces are going to be not brand new businesses, but established businesses that won't fold if it doesn't, get off to a great start or something? I mean, I lived on 4th Street downtown for about 3 years. That's what they did, is before they even talked about revamping them, was that, we need to have a list of ideal tenants.
Yeah.
So that way, if it gets off to a slow start even, they're not just gonna close up shop and then
Right.
staring at empty storefronts, which currently we stare at. So it's like,
Yeah.
it seems a little silly to create more retail commercial if we can't close retail commercial.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. So how you curate a business district is really, really important, right? And so there are good examples and there are not so great examples about it. Also, I'd say we want to be careful to how much commercial space we want to have, because if we did too much, we could cannibalize the businesses that are doing well in the community. So we want to make sure we find that right balance. And we don't have it yet, but that's what some of this dialogue will lead to. Amy?
I'm actually on board with CIC, and I'm the owner of Art Gallery. One thing that I would like to see is that I think that it's important as a business owner that there are businesses that have synergy with the existing businesses. That if you're coming here for one, it makes logical sense that you may want to also patron the other because it's right there and it's convenient. And I think that's part of the problem is there's a little bit of disjointedness in that. Like, I did really well with the winery because a lot of times my clients, when they come to my open gallery nights, will go to the winery before or after, or they'll go to meetings and so forth. And so I like to help support those businesses and encourage my clients to go there. It would be great if there were other businesses that also had similarities or similar clients that we're all targeting that have similar reason and purpose to be there at the same time. So when you're assembling that dream team of businesses, think about how they can also pull a synergistic relationship with the existing businesses in the community.
That's a great point. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, please.
With the talk of the increase of residents, 200 mixed use, if we consider the impact on traffic on Vine Street, if we're having another 400 people, I mean, I'm glad to have more cars going up and down Vine, but somebody made comment about how they're driving up and down at 40 miles an hour now.
Well, and that was one of the points that I tried to make earlier, in that the quantity of the traffic is usually not as much of a problem as the speed. I think we will get to a point, because Vine Street does have a lot of different designations. There may need to be a traffic study. We have not commissioned one yet, but it could be, whether it's part of this due diligence phase or it's something that comes after, I think it's something worth considering. Okay. So this kind of maybe picks up a slightly different bent on from question number 2. What new services or businesses are desired, and what would be most welcomed? So this gets to Amy's point about, if you want to have a curated experience, what are the things that might be the gaps? What kind of business is most exciting to people? A grocery store? Okay. Anybody else? Okay. We're going to go ahead and go. This is the last one, and this one should hopefully really be a fun question. So we're going to paint a picture for you. If a new billboard were placed along I-75 welcoming people to St. Bernard, we're talking about 5 years in the future, what would it say? What would you want people to know? What came up in this conversation? Any interesting conversation that people would like to share? Cassidy Staver. It's the same conversation I was having at this table. Yeah.
It says a lot about the community, the comfort of the community that we have in that small townness that means a lot, that just that word means a lot. But then the ease of access and all the things that are around us that we can easily get to, that big city. So that was one thing we said.
Yeah, that's great.
We were just talking that we think that if we could pretty up the walk up from Procter and Gamble, that we get a lot, I get a lot of lunch clientele, and this gentleman here was saying that he sees a lot of P&G people, and I know they walk. A lot of people will walk up to the square for lunch, or they'll walk up to Sherpy's to get a sandwich,
Yeah.
or they'll walk to Ross just to get a walk-in. So maybe if we could pretty that area up, it might entice some of them maybe to stay and have
Absolutely.
dinner,
Right.
or go to the Wiedemann's, or go to the winery, or go to, the people that some of the existing businesses that get more traffic. So, it's just a thought.
Actually, that's a great point. We talked a little bit earlier about giving people a reason to stop, but giving people a reason to stay is also important. And I think that gets to what Amy was talking about. Businesses that kind of curate an experience together. Sir, right behind you.
We are definitely the center of Cincinnati,
Uh-huh.
and the heart of Cincinnati, essentially.
Yeah.
So if we can play on that, family, that's the artery of Vine Street, like you said earlier. There's tons of options to play with that. We are the center of it all.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Anything else? All right. So next steps, you saw this slide before, but this is the beginning of the community engagement process. So we're going to take the information, we're going to collect your cards. We're going to, hopefully you have a little number by each one of them so that we get the right answers, because I know there's going to be some consistency among the threads. What we like to do with this is put together, it might be like a word cloud format, so that we understand what are the consistent messages, and then it gives us a chance to understand some of the outliers too, because we'll probably do both. We'll pick at both the things that rise to the top with consistency, and then we'll try to dig into some of the reasons that we only hear it once or twice. And then we'll be able to come back to you next month, talk about what everybody said, because not everybody had a chance to speak this evening. But then we'll also come back with some of the options. The gentleman in the back was asking me, how much stuff can we fit, right? What would this look like? Well, we're going to start to look at that. We're going to start to iterate on that and talk about what 200 units looks like. It's probably not going to be a really tall building, but it's obviously not all going to be single-family homes as well. We want to have that diversity of housing stock. We want to offer new product in a variety of lifestyles, if you will. So we'll be able to work on that. We'll also be able to talk about how much commercial space and make sure that there's an emphasis on some of the green space that we were talking about before. So we'll have something that we're able to share with you all next month. And then coming back, in the third meeting, we'll have some more visuals, and we'll have the benefit of some of the due diligence. Adam? Oh. Yeah. It's a plus or minus number right now. It's in the range of, right. Yeah. Sir.
Just talking to people, I think one of the concerns is just the price point for the units. What are we looking at for, ideal?
So one of the things that we'll be doing, whether it might happen that we can report in a month, but we like to do benchmarking. So understanding what apartments are renting for in peer neighborhoods, whether it's College Hill like we talked about before, whether it's Norwood, Oakley, understanding that and how they differentiate themselves gives us an opportunity to differentiate ourselves from them as well. And we'll do a little bit of research and we'll understand some price points. So that's something that Darren's team is already working on the financial side. Right now we don't have answers for you because we're not sure exactly what market rate in St. Bernard means, because you don't have a lot of multifamily apartments that are recently built. So we need to figure out kind of what the market will take to promote, but also at the same time maintain some affordability so that we can fill those units up. Because empty apartments, just like empty retail, doesn't do anybody any good. Yeah.
Yeah, so are you planning on just rental units, or are you talking build to then sell for ownership units as well?
This is more a question for the developer as far as what gets built to sell and what gets built to rent.
And I only just I only ask because like I'm working in Hyde Park Oakley now, and they're pushing back on a huge development in their neighborhood right now, and I just feel like around the city, rental units are so congested that I just can't see people moving to St. Bernard just on a whim to spend $1,700 a month on rent.
Well, that's why we're having this kind of conversation so we can, right? Primarily what we always talk about is the equity market rate, not low income housing. Market rate with some opportunities for the townhouse product for sale. We got to figure out what fits, what works, what the market says, what you guys think, and then how the numbers are all. That's why we get to have a bunch of people. Please come back.
I think you can expand on that because there's rumors that everybody thinks that it's going to be low market, it's going to be Section 8, and they're not understanding the difference between Section 8 and the
We don't build.
Let's say 5 years from now, you're wildly successful beyond all of the things you dreamed. What do you foresee the makeup, the diversity of this town becoming, and the cohesiveness of this town becoming? Will we recognize St. Bernard when that happens?
I would say you would absolutely recognize St. Bernard. We like to build on the strengths of the neighborhood that we're working in. And again, what I would kind of encourage you to take a look at is a project, like I said, in College Hill Station, where the College Hill, the CHIRC folks, the College Hill Community Urban Redevelopment Corporation, that's a mouthful, has been working for 20 years. The CIC here has been working for a long time to try to get property control and kind of curate to a degree what the experience looks like along Vine Street. What they're doing in College Hill is very intentionally choosing and recruiting businesses that come to College Hill, mom and pop operations, some larger operations, some smaller operations, so that they can maintain the culture of College Hill. What we're offering them is a new product which offers more density so those businesses can continue to be successful. At the same time, we can offer in a new building the flexibility that might be a little more of a clean slate, if you will, for other businesses that they would try to attract. So it should be very much a balance. If this project is wildly successful, then maybe we have a conversation about what's happening on the west side of the street or further to the north, or some gaps in the fabric further to the south. But we want to make sure that we're building on the strengths of College Hill first. You're doing so much right. Or, I'm sorry, St. Bernard.
I'm sorry I didn't say this when I first started. But our whole strategy of what we do is we do development with the community and not to the community. It's a bit different. We perceive differently. That's why we're having this meeting here. And that's why you will have a chance to really weigh in on how this should look so that it can be something that you all are proud of and can support. So we all win together.
Makes the final decision when it comes down to where you get all the input, is it CIC or city or mayor?
It's your work.
So they're taking everyone's input and basically trying to build a plan. So at that point, I wouldn't say it's going to be a vote, but they're taking all the input, trying to make sure that what is stated, that they put together the right plan that complements the community as a whole. So I mean, this is, again, it's important that to have this kind of input, take all of your comments, tabulate everything, and try to work out the best possibility for us. So again, as these meetings progress, this will still be continued.
We are a couple minutes behind schedule, but that is what we have for you this evening. I want to thank you again on behalf of Darren and Tillman and the CIC. We're thrilled to be a part of this. We're really excited to be a part of this and help plan the future of St. Bernard. So, and we'll stick around if somebody wants to chat after.
Just a quick reminder, after next week's CIC meeting, we will have the exact day for the week of the 16th for the meeting, and we'll get that announced, so we'll make sure that that word is passed around the community. We hope to have you all back. Don't forget about the luau. You may see some of these folks walking around in our community during the luau, so feel free to engage them. So thank you again.